Good evening, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to Rebelwatch. I'm CARSON WAIRE. With me, Joseph Rogers, and with Jason KERN here too. Going to talk some sports today. Going to talk a little bit about the Ole Miss running back situation as we head into this weekend's game against Alabama. The SEC West still in play for the Rebs. They're going to need a few things to go their way for this to happen. Going to talk about that game. Going to talk about the basketball teams. The season just started, the outlook for the men's and women's squads, some new faces on both of these teams. Then we're going to get some NFL action for you, covering all the divisions, all the division races, who's hot, who's not, standout players we've been disappointed by so far. We've had some coaching changes in the NFL in the last few days. We've got it all for you here today. So we're going to get things rolling this afternoon. The Ole Miss running back situation. So coming into this season, Zach Evans and Quinn Judkins was going to be the two-headed monster that was going to terrorize the SEC. As we all know, Zach Evans went down with an injury, sort of opened up the floodgates, guys, for Quinn Judkins to get pretty much all the carries and all the work, and he has not disappointed. Jason, just tell me a little bit about the dynamic that this offense has turned into with Quinn Judkins being the guy.
I mean, you couldn't have said it better yourself. What a surprise Quinn Judkins has been. I mean, Zach Evans being the five-star transfer from TCU, I mean, everyone thought this was the guy, but Judkins out of nowhere. What a stud he's been so far.
Absolutely. And, another thing to note here, it's a gift and a curse because, as we talked about before the show, Joseph, we've seen Ole Miss not really throw to the tight end or the running back much this year. 173 total yards to tight ends receiving this year. So, Joseph, just talk a little bit about, is there a role for Zach Evans in this offense still?
I mean, you look at the guy, he was a five-star prospect coming out of Georgia. Was a Georgia commit. Some things happen. He goes to TCU. He tears it up down in TCU, and now he's in Oxford. And the kid is a stud. I mean, they don't just hand out 5 stars to anybody. There's definitely a role for him in the pass game, and we've seen what kind of runner he can be while he's healthy. Absolutely.
And, another thing, 1,000-yard rusher already is Quinn Judkins, up there in the conversation for best running back in the SEC, and he's only a freshman. The question, though, is, does he belong in the conversation for best running back in the country with these guys like Bijan Robinson of Texas, these guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, who's over in Alabama? Does he belong in this conversation so early and as such a surprise?
I feel like he does, 100%. I mean, we've played 9 games so far, and he's already at 1,000 rushing yards as a true freshman. I mean, what a surprise he's been.
Absolutely. And, we're going to need help from all these players this weekend against Alabama. But we're going to table that for just a second. We're going to take things over to the court. The men's and women's basketball team have kicked things off. And we're going to start with the men's team here. So a little bit of a new-look team. You lose Jarkel Joyner, who was the leader of the team last year, but you keep Matthew Morrell, second team all preseason SEC voted by the coaches, and you've got Deshaun Ruffin, who's still playing hurt slightly because of that torn ACL last year, but you've got that core in the backcourt. So what does that mean? They're really going to have to step up and lead this team, Joseph.
I think the key component is Ruffin. We got to see what he can do whenever he gets back to 100%, but I'm very, very excited for this Rebel basketball team.
And Jason, tell me a little about Jamin Brakefield, the Duke transfer, big hype coming in, and, averaging 7.7 points per game last year on 47% shooting. Nothing too crazy, still some time to grow. Just talk a little bit about what kind of role does he need to take on this year for us to have success?
I mean, just watching him play last year, I mean, when he was on, but sometimes he can be pretty iffy. But when he's on, he can be a real spark to this team's offense.
Definitely. And another piece to talk about is Robert Allen, who had 15 points in the win over Alcorn State. Definitely a surprise there. Some points generated in the front court would be huge for Kermit Davis's team because, as we know, last year the team sort of lived and died by the 3. Guard play was definitely the most important aspect. And if the guards weren't on, it was very, very difficult for us to have any sort of success. So now we're going to discuss the women's team a little bit. Big success last year, but they lose Shakira Austin, one of the best players in college basketball last year. High draft pick in the WNBA draft by the Washington Mystics, so she gets to go home in a way because she's from Maryland. But we've got another Marylander on the team, and her name is Madison Scott, and this is now her team to lead. Just talk a little bit about what it means for her to being the player on the team this year, the go-to option.
I mean, looking at last year, the first round exit in the tournament was pretty tough, but I feel like Coach O's got a big comeback coming, and she's got these players ready to go this year, so we'll see what she's got.
Definitely. And another aspect of this offense that we had last year, and we're really going to hopefully see some progression in it this year, is the three-point shooting. Snudda Collins, one of the better three-point shooters in the SEC, really can space the floor. And Joseph, what does that mean when you've got an elite inside scorer like Madison Scott to be able to kick out to a player like Collins, sort of feed off each other and really space the floor and make it tough for these defenses to try and stop the Rebs?
Yeah, I mean, the gravity somebody can have in the paint, it'll open up so many lanes for people not to just shoot the three, but to cut to the basket. But Snudda Collins is going to step it up this year, and she's going to flame throw that thing from the three.
Absolutely. 30% three-point shooter last year was Snudda Collins, and we are hoping to see that number go up a little bit this year, hopefully get some volume, more of a six-man type role player on the team last year. But as we mentioned, the team losing some pieces. Coach Yo is going to have an expanded role for her this year, and I think she's going to do a lot of scoring for this offense.
Couldn't agree more.
And now we're heading into the big topic of discussion for the show. As everyone knows, Oxford still a little bit tame, but as we head into the back end of this week, it's going to get live in this town. Alabama coming to town for an SEC West showdown, a big one for the Rebs. We've had this one circled all year long. The week is finally here. Just going to talk a little bit about what's going on strategy-wise for us coming off the bye week, rested up. LSU just defeated Alabama last Saturday down in Baton Rouge. A huge shockwave through the SEC. Order now, really in question, as Alabama is normally the team to really keep things the way they are and is sort of the trendsetter and the team to beat always. They've got 2 losses now on their record. So, just first of all, before we really get into the game, what does that LSU loss mean for Alabama? 2 losses at this point in the season, unheard of for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, I mean, what a shock that game was in Baton Rouge last weekend. I mean, in the first half, Bryce Young looked out of sorts, started picking up in the second half a little bit, but that was crazy. But Alabama hasn't lost back-to-back games since 2013, so looking at that loss last week, it's gonna be a challenge for the Rebels this weekend.
Absolutely. And Joseph, just talk a little bit about possibly the matchup this week as we get into the game. Jonathan Mingo, been a huge part of our offense this year. When we do decide to throw the ball, we are a run-heavy type offense, but when we're throwing the ball, Mingo's been the guy, one of the top receivers in the nation in terms of receiving yards per game, yards after the catch, all that stuff. So just talk a little bit about Alabama not being the big-time prowess, of the defensive backs that they normally are. Normally, all of these guys, we've got Landon Collins, Jalen Armour-Davis, many more, Marlon Humphrey, just to name a few, that have come from the school. This year, they seem to be just a little bit more vulnerable to the pass game. Just talk about how Mingo can sort of open up that Crimson Tide defense and possibly make them honor the pass and create some running lanes.
Yeah, I mean, Mingo is our guy. He is 6+, runs a 4.3, catches everything, big hands. He's definitely going to have his hands full with Kool-Aid McKinstry. But ultimately, the Rebels need to turn the clock back to last year, kind of implement some of that offense, and hopefully we can take advantage of it.
Absolutely. And, do y'all expect for Alabama to kind of stack up the box and say, all right, Jackson Dart, we're in man, beat me, that sort of thing? Or do you expect them to take a different approach and try and use that stout defensive line that they have to try and stop the run?
I'm looking to see Malik Heath have a big weekend. I feel like Jackson Dart, he's shown he can throw the ball. Sometimes he has, but when he's on, he's on. I'm going to look to see Jonathan Mingo, Malik Heath, and maybe Casey Kelly is going to show up and get some points and some yards.
A Casey Kelly prediction.
Very
interesting.
I mean, come on.
All right, and moving on to the Alabama side of things, obviously, as we mentioned earlier, Jahmyr Gibbs in the discussion for best running back in the country. Jahmyr Gibbs averaging 7 yards a carry on the season. The usage, not as much there because of all the talent Alabama has out there at receiver and, of course, with Bryce Young at quarterback. But 15 carries for 99 yards against LSU. I mean, that's very, very effective. Do y'all think, judging on how sort of weak Ole Miss has been at times against the run this year, is Alabama going to really try and use Gibbs this weekend?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think he's definitely their best offensive player. He reminds me a lot of the Saints' Alvin Kamara. Whether he can catch the ball out of the backfield and take it 70-plus yards for a touchdown. He can dice you up in between the tackles. He can do a little bit of everything. We will see how this Ole Miss line does stack up with them. As you said, a little bit of a porous defense up front. LSU's got some studs up front, and they still let Gibbs run all over them.
Let me pick up off that Ole Miss defense. You saw against Mississippi State versus Alabama, when you give Bryce Young time, he can work his magic, and he is a crazy quarterback when you give him time. Now, Ole Miss has had issues rushing 3, and that's not going to work against Alabama. We're going to see what Lane Kiffin and the defense has up their sleeve this weekend.
Definitely, and as you mentioned, issues, even when Ole Miss brings 4, sometimes the pressure really doesn't get there. So, maybe having to resort to bringing 5, even 6 guys in big blitz packages, and, that could open up lanes, especially for us to get beat over the top in the passing game.
I mean, we saw what number 40 Harold Perkins did for LSU last week against Alabama. The dude was a game changer as a true freshman.
Absolutely. And now moving on, just some SEC West college football playoff talk. Ole Miss still in the conversation for the playoff. There's some scenarios that need to play out. Fellas, what has to happen for Ole Miss to get in the playoff?
Ole Miss fans, I hate to say it, but go Arkansas this weekend. We need the Razorbacks to pick it up and beat the Tigers at 11 a.m. on Saturday, because that would be the step in the right direction. Next off, beating Alabama, it's a great step. But first, go Razorbacks. Hate to say it.
Absolutely. So as we mentioned, Ole Miss pretty much needs to win out for the West to be in play. LSU's got to pick up a loss. And, it's possible. Listen, Arkansas sort of not playing as well as maybe we had expected this year. KJ Jefferson, still an outstanding talent. Local kid from Sardis, by the way. Mm-hmm. And he's got the ability to be a difference maker for this team. So look for them to possibly give the Tigers a little bit of trouble on Saturday.
Yep.
And for Alabama, this discussion has been all the rage all around the country. Is Alabama really out of the conversation for the college football playoff already?
It's hard to count out Nick Saban. That's all I'm going to say. It's hard to count out Nick Saban, the greatest college football coach of all time. We're hoping that it doesn't come to that, but we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. And, the scenario, I guess, guys, for Alabama to make the playoff, do y'all think they pretty much have to win the SEC?
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, no question. No question.
And then that also opens up a possibility of, a 2-loss team in the playoff. But so y'all are basically saying if you win the SEC, it's an automatic bid to the playoff, no matter what your record is.
The hardest conference in college football.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you beat Georgia in the SEC championship, I don't know why you wouldn't be able to get in.
Absolutely.
The last 2-loss college football team to make it to the national championship, also from the SEC, LSU, 2011, I believe.
All right, and moving on, before we head to the NFL, how about some score predictions for this Saturday? Joseph, we'll start with you.
Ooh, give me Ole Miss in a big one, big shootout, 37-34.
Okay.
I think the offense picks it up, and I feel like the defense, it's going to be hard against that Alabama offense. I'm going Rebs 31, Bama 24.
All right, and as these guys, I've also got a shootout. I think defensively, it's really going to come down to who can get that stop. That, we all know how Lane Kiffin is. Can Alabama get that stop on a 4th and 4 at like the 35-yard line? Instead of kicking a field goal, we go for it. Those big momentum plays on defense that can really change a game. If we can get those, I think we can take down the Tide. I've got Ole Miss 49-42.
When you look at the last time Alabama was in Oxford, 2 years ago, the rain delay, the no capacity in the stadium, we had a shootout with them. It was 42-42 in the start of the 4th quarter. And then some things didn't convert, had a couple penalties go against us. But we have shown that we can hang with the Crimson Tide, and I would not be surprised if there's a little upset brewing in Oxford.
Well, it sounds like we've all got that opinion. So, now that we've finished up the talk about the game, we're going to move on to the NFL. So, we're through a little over half of the season. I would say some pretty conclusive thoughts can be had. Now, there's no more excuse of, it's early. That excuse is out the window. So we'll start things here in the AFC East. How about the New York Jets?
What a division that is. Now let me talk about the New York Jets for a second. Some have said, the Jets don't play starting quarterbacks. The Jets are not legit. They play the backup on the Steelers, the backup on the Dolphins. No Tua, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle are hurt. Ladies and gentlemen, that win against the Buffalo Bills, has secured a spot. The Jets are here to play this year, folks. Robert Sala's got the guys going. Sauce Gardner's been insane. Garrett Wilson on the offense, the huge trade for James Robinson. Breece Hall going down is hurt, but James Robinson is here to fill that gap, and this Jets team has looked unstoppable. That defense, might I even say, top 3 defense in the league.
Wow. Sure do have
C.J. Mosley is a leader. Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed up there, top 2, maybe top 3 cornerback duo in the NFL right now.
Well, definitely, as we mentioned, Breece Hall was really starting to get in stride and then goes down with the injury. Just talk a little bit about what's it meant for Michael Carter to step up, and then as we also mentioned, the deal at the deadline to acquire James Robinson. How is that quick, almost immediate rebound? And by the way, both guys did score a touchdown in that win against the Bills. What does that quick rebound mean for the momentum of this team? Not getting kind of caught up in that injury, keeping things rolling. What does that mean for the team?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything. It keeps the momentum going throughout the season. Michael Carter has definitely had a taste of, the feature back role in last year. It was nice to kind of see him be able to rejoin that kind of group. James Robinson had a great rookie year with Jacksonville last year. I'm kind of surprised that they got rid of him. They didn't want to keep their two-headed monster with Etienne and Robinson himself. But the Jets are doing everything that nobody thought they would this year.
And let me add on that. There's a lot of people that are doubting Zach Wilson. He's had some bad games. He's shown some bad games. But he has shown that he can be a quarterback. And he's still early. I mean, I feel like it's kind of unfair to give him a quarterback in his second year this much hate. Give him some time. Give him some playmakers. Corey Davis is still out. Wait for him to come back with James Robinson and Michael Carter. Don't sleep on the New York Jets this year, folks.
Let me start the petition to get Elijah Moore the ball more though.
Robert Saleh came out today and said that they're going to move him to the slot. So let's see if he'll get some targets this weekend against the New England Patriots.
Absolutely. And, that division, not just the Patriots division to lose anymore as it's been in past years. Every team in that division's got a winning record. So in the conversation for the best division in football. And with that, we're going to move on to a division that is not quite as closely contested. The Vikings are 7-1. They lead the NFC North. And what has been going on with the Green Bay Packers, a team that was said to be in the conversation for the Super Bowl at the beginning of this year? Now you've got a situation, Joe Barry getting a lot of flack, the defensive coordinator of the Packers, for his schemes. And, you've got playmakers on that defense. You've got Adrian Amos. You've got Jair Alexander, 2 elite DBs in the NFL. Sitting in too much soft zone, not letting his guys really, make plays. And then, of course, you've got last year's MVP, Aaron Rodgers, having a really, really tough go at things so far. Jason, just talk a little bit about Rodgers and what's been going on this year.
I mean, the biggest thing for the Packers is Davante Adams going to the Raiders. I mean, that was Aaron Rodgers' favorite target. It's been his favorite target for so many years. And for him to just lose him like that, I mean, it's going to hurt. And watching those 2 red zone picks against the Lions last weekend, I mean, that's unheard of for Aaron Rodgers. But, I mean, you can see he's all out of sorts. You can see sometimes he looks like he doesn't even want to be there, like this facial expressions and stuff. And even with the 2, A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones in the backfield, I mean, they have some playmakers, but it's just not working out so far because Davante Adams, I feel like.
Yeah, Joseph, and, as you mentioned, Davante Adams. You've got, going into this season, you've got 1,500 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns to replace. Joseph, talk about what has losing Davante Adams and now having Allen Lazard as your number 1 receiver, how has that impacted that offense?
Yeah, I mean, tremendously. You take a guy that is arguably the best wide receiver in the game of football, and you take him away from a future Hall of Fame quarterback. You would think the quarterback would kind of be able to make up stuff. But the rookies that they've got, Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, just haven't panned out yet. I mean, it's early. It's only their first year. Hopefully they can get healthy. But, yeah, losing Davante Adams has been such a major loss that I think Green Bay didn't even think it would be.
Yes, and the Packers stand at 3-6 through 9 games. As you mentioned, Minnesota leads that division at 7-1. We're going to stay in that division, talk about a team that's also struggling, the Detroit Lions, and their star or supposed star running back, DeAndre Swift. Had a really, really nice week 1, 15 carries for 144 yards week 1. Looking like, whoa, maybe this guy's finally turning the corner and becoming the star back that we have heard about him to be. Injuries catch up to him again, ankle problems, shoulder problems. The Lions say he's back healthy, but guys, 2 carries last week. What do we make of this? Is he really healthy?
I mean, Jamal Williams has looked dominant. I mean, for a guy who's been in and out of injuries, I feel like it's kind of risky when you have a guy who's been as dominant as Jamal Williams has been. The Lions are not going to make the playoffs this year. So I'm not surprised they're not rushing DeAndre Swift back, but I don't know. It's definitely a concern for the Detroit Lions.
Yep, and Joseph, talk about, on the topic of losing players again, TJ Hawkinson dealt. Some people say that the Lions won that trade because of the picks they got for him. Just talk a little bit about losing that weapon. Jared Goff really, really liked throwing to TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, I mean, TJ Hawkinson, that offense, first off, is pretty mediocre. We have Jared Goff running the show. He's led a team to the Super Bowl, but I think we could chalk that more up as a Sean McVay thing. But you take away one of the few weapons they have, it's only going to send them in a deeper down spiral. I mean, now all they have is Amon-Ra St. Brown to throw to, and he's been dealing with injuries himself here lately.
He's also been banged up. And, people questioning Dan Campbell. I personally don't think it's fair to question him as a coach. You've got to give him a little bit more time to put some talent on the field, get some players in draft classes that are his draft classes, and try and make a run at this thing.
Well, do you guys feel like Jared Goff might be the issue?
100%.
Really? You think so?
I just think he's not that guy.
Me personally, I think Jared Goff is the kind of starting quarterback that can maybe get you to the playoffs, not the kind of starting quarterback that can win you a Super Bowl. There's definitely levels.
He reminds me of Jimmy Garoppolo when he took the 49ers to the Super Bowl. He was carried by that defense, and Deebo Samuel carried that team. I feel like he was just along for the ride. Same with Peyton Manning with the Broncos. I feel like the team just carried him. But when you got playmakers, I feel like you don't need the craziest quarterback in the NFL.
Absolutely. And now we're going to stay on the topic of teams that are struggling a little bit. We're going to talk about the Denver Broncos, who were also some people's pick to win the Super Bowl this year. They have really been disappointing this year to those fans.
Now that defense, I feel bad for that defense. That is a top 3 defense in the league, and to get no support from your offense, it just hurts, and it hurts the fan base. And Russell Wilson has been nowhere. I mean, he's coming from the Seahawks. He's been a great quarterback in this league, and he's been so quiet this year. So it's been a crazy surprise.
And just talk a little bit about, on paper, they obviously lose Javonte Williams to injury, but on paper, going into this year, you got Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy to throw to. This offense looked like it was very capable of putting up points in bunches. Not really been the case so far.
They definitely do have some studs on that offense, like you said. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. Melvin Gordon, even in the backfield, he has some fumbling problems, but still an electric back. I think it's growing pains with first-year head coach Nathaniel Hackett. We'll see if they can get things together, and see if Russell Wilson can finally start cooking.
Absolutely. And, as we mentioned, they're set up to succeed on offense. You got Cortland Sutton, a big physical receiver that a lot of teams are missing in today's NFL. And then you've got Jeudy, who, can shake somebody out of his shoes. You can play him in the slot. You can put him out wide. He's a great route runner. So, maybe we'll look for this team to rebound in the coming years. So now we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the Indianapolis Colts, a very interesting team. Got rid of their head coach. Jeff Saturday named the interim head coach. Guys, what can we make of the Colts front office coming out in the press conference and saying that they like that Jeff Saturday has no experience? They like that he doesn't know what to do because, as they mentioned, he doesn't know what he can't do. So he's going to lead the team from the perspective of a veteran offensive lineman that's played the game at a high level for a long time instead of the tactical head coach approach. What do you guys think about that?
I'm definitely thrown for a loop. Frank Wright hasn't been put in great position since he's been the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. He's had 4 different starting quarterbacks. He's gone to the playoff twice and even has a winning record still. As far as Jeff Saturday, I'm kind of up in the air about how I feel about that. 0 coaching experience at the college or NFL level, and in his last year at high school coaching in Georgia, he went at a 3-7 record.
Yeah, very interesting things to think about. And another thing we all know, as you mentioned, different starting quarterbacks. The Colts have a tendency to try to acquire some veteran quarterbacks to try and get the last little bit of football they got in them. Is Aaron Rodgers a potential trade candidate for the Colts to land? You've got Jeff Saturday now as the coach, as we mentioned, interim head coach, but he could stick around for a little while. Are they a trade destination? You've got Jeff Saturday, who had a great relationship with Aaron Rodgers while they played together. With the tendency they like acquiring veteran quarterbacks, is that a plausible statement, or is that people just speculating?
I can't see Aaron Rodgers in another uniform. I feel like these are his last years, and I feel he's just going to battle it out with the Packers. I mean, Matt Ryan didn't work out this year. Philip Rivers wasn't bad, but he wasn't the answer. I just can't see Aaron Rodgers going anywhere else. It would be crazy to me.
Joseph, you?
It's kind of like the Brett Favre thing all over again. It's hard to picture him in another uniform, but it just might happen. I wouldn't put anything past Jim Irsay.
Yeah, especially, might need some help in the passing game. You've got weapons. You've got Michael Pittman. You've got Mo Alley Cox, who's been a very, very serviceable tight end, especially in the red zone. Of course, despite the down year, Jonathan Taylor, still one of the better running backs in the NFL, if not the best talent-wise. So definitely some talent in that offense. A big-time quarterback could really take them to the next level.
What also surprised me about last week, Sam Ehlinger sacked 9 times. Is the offensive line the concern, or is it Sam Ehlinger not being able to make decisions? Because 9 sacks in a game.
Absolutely.
That's
massive.
Unheard of.
That's massive. So we're going to move things now to the NFC East, the division in years past gotten all kinds of negative remarks about being an easy division, the easiest division in football. No one's really trying to win there. That is totally turned on its head this year. You've got the New York Giants, who are putting a legitimate playoff run together. You've got a healthy Saquon Barkley. Possibly this year, the most effective running back in football this year has been a healthy Saquon Barkley. You've got Wink Martindale, the new defensive coordinator, changed the culture over there. They just lost Xavier McKinney to injury, but still you've got those pieces on defense. It's a young defense, but they're hungry, they're aggressive. Guys, what has changed in New York? Has it been the defensive culture? What's it been?
It's Brian Dable. That dude brings the energy every day, and he's got the team rallied up, and he's got the team excited to play some football. I mean, this is not the past Giants. This is a good Giants team, but is Daniel Jones going to be the quarterback that's going to lead this team somewhere, or is he the one who's holding this Giants team back?
Absolutely. And Joseph, what do you think about the quarterback situation? What do you make of that? Is Daniel Jones a legit starting quarterback in the NFL?
I think he's definitely shown us glimpses of that this year, whether it be throwing the ball or even on his feet. I mean, he's one of the better rushing quarterbacks in the league, surprisingly.
Absolutely.
I think Brian Dable has definitely created a culture in that locker room that has everyone bought in. They're going to have a little bit of a dilemma at the end of the year. Saquon's contract is coming up, and Daniel Jones' fifth-year option has already been declined. They can only franchise tag one. So one may be out of there after this year.
A decision definitely going to be made in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Now we're going to stay in the division. The team that everyone's talking about, the Eagles. Are they the best team in football? I mean, the record shows it. Do you put them up ahead of the Bills and the Chiefs? Do you guys put them up there yet? Or are we still kind of respecting, past years? What do y'all think?
I mean, the 8-0 record shows that they've been a good team, but when you look at the record, the Vikings have been the only real team that they've played so far. I mean, they play the Giants, they play the Cowboys, but they play them every year, and they're kind of used to playing them. But would I put them above the Bills and the Chiefs? That I feel like that's hard to say. I feel like you can't put a team above Mahomes when he's hot. And Josh Allen. I mean, Josh Allen's going through an injury right now, so who knows what's going on in Buffalo. But where it stands right now, I got the Eagles as the third best team in the league.
Okay. And some SEC alums on that team. Just talk about how big was it that they brought in A.J. Brown this offseason, giving Jalen Hurts that other weapon to throw to besides Devontae Smith. And even Dallas Goedert had a great game against Houston last Thursday. He's been putting together a really nice season. Now Jalen Hurts, besides his legs, has got weapons to throw to.
Yeah, I mean, the addition of A.J. Brown cannot be overstated. He's opened up many things in the passing game, in the running game. They can kill you from the outside, from the inside, across the middle, out wide. A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts have that offense humming right now.
Absolutely. And we're going to move up. We're going to go to the other side of the country. We're going to go out west. The Seattle Seahawks, the team that nobody would have picked to be in this position right now. But they're putting things together. They went in, said, Geno Smith's our starter. We're going to try and win football games with him. And guess what? They've been doing it. They've got weapons. Jason, talk a little bit about, did people sort of sleep on Geno Smith being, just that kind of wily veteran guy that can come in when you give them receivers like Lockett and Metcalf? They can come in and make plays.
I mean, in the beginning of the year in the preseason, everyone thought that Drew Lock was going to be the quarterback of this team. But let me tell you, what a surprise Kenneth Walker has been this year.
Absolutely.
I mean, I feel like he's the favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year if Breece Hall didn't go down. I just feel like he's been a stud. DK has always been great. Lockett's been great. But what a surprise Geno Smith has been. I mean, out of nowhere, he looks like a veteran. It looks like like a top 5 quarterback in the league right now.
Yep, and Joseph, as we mentioned earlier when we were talking about the Alabama game, momentum-shifting plays that have happened on defense that can turn the game on its head and win you the game. Tariq Woolen, 4 interceptions on the year, been arguably one of the better coverage corners in all of football. Just talk about the impact that he's had on this defense, making those big momentum plays.
And he's doing this as a rookie. Stepping up, Legion of Boom 2.0, some may say. It's all about how you draft and making sure those guys pan out. If you can cultivate them and groom them to be the guys that you saw them to be on paper, I mean, that's the biggest thing.
Absolutely. And that NFC West, that division not turning out the way a lot of people thought it was going to turn out. The Rams, the Niners, not in the position that people thought they were going to be in.
I mean, that team has been all out of sorts. I mean, Matthew Stafford he got his Super Bowl, but he has looked all out of sorts this year. I mean, Cooper Kupp is that entire offense, and losing Von Miller on defense hurt even more. I mean, you still got Aaron Donald, but what a surprise the Rams have been. I mean, they do not look good at all.
Yeah, definitely. And that acquisition of Allen Robinson, Joseph, people thought that was going to be a big key for this offense to get that other guy, and especially a bigger guy to throw to in the red zone. Hasn't really turned out the way they thought.
No, it hasn't. Allen Robinson has been very disappointing in his short tenure with the Rams now. Look for guys like Van Jefferson, former Ole Miss student here. Hopefully he can pick up the slack that Allen Robinson's leaving.
Absolutely. So now we're going to go back to the NFC North as we move toward the tail end of the show. Justin Fields. Some people had given up on him. Some people had said maybe it's time to get somebody new in there. He's turned some heads. He's come out last week with a massive performance, and he's throwing the ball. He's running the ball for long touchdowns. He's doing it all. He's a big physical guy, even inside the 10 and even between the tackles. We've seen them run it with Justin Fields. Just, Jason, talk a little bit about what has Justin Fields changed in his game this year, or is it the weapons around him that have gotten better? What's going on in Chicago?
I mean, speed kills. I mean, he is a dynamic quarterback. I mean, he's got speed. He can throw. His confidence is so high this year. For him, he just looks like a comfortable quarterback. He looks like he's been in the league for a couple years now. And with the trade of Chase Claypool coming over to the Bears, it just gives him one more weapon. And with David Montgomery in the backfield, I mean, the Bears have looked pretty decent. And what a surprise Justin Fields was this past weekend. Absolutely.
And Joseph, just talk a little bit about, people have been kind of waiting, especially Bear fans, waiting for Darnell Mooney to kind of turn that corner and really, people had talked about last year, he's running great routes and he's getting missed or overthrown and that sort of thing. Talk a little bit about how, the connection was sort of sparked last week, definitely.
Without a doubt. I mean, the Tulane product has definitely stepped his game up the last few weeks. Justin Fields has shown he can be dynamic both on the ground and through the air. We all three saw that play where he scrambled to the left, pump faked midair, and then took it off for a 50-plus yard run. I mean, a little bit less of that. It's great to see. A little bit less of that. Let's hit Darnell. Let's hit Chase Claypool, and maybe even a little Cole Kmet in there. But I definitely think he's on his way to being a top-tier quarterback in this league.
Absolutely. Cole Kmet, a very serviceable tight end. We're going to end things off down south with the NFC South, a division that has been kind of a weird one so far. It's definitely still up for grabs, almost a situation like the NFC East has been in previous years where it's anybody's division still in week 13, week 12, that sort of thing. What has been going on? We did not expect the Falcons to come out and have a great year. We did not expect the Panthers to come out and have a great year. But the Bucs and the Saints, two teams we expected to put forth pretty strong campaigns. That's not happened yet.
I mean, you can't win ball games with Andy Dalton at quarterback, and Jameis Winston's still a team's got a lot of weapons and a lot of good players, but the quarterback situation in New Orleans has just been out of sorts so far.
Absolutely. But Joseph, one bright spot while we're on the topic of the Saints. Talk a little bit about two things here. Just about DeMario Davis seems to have found the fountain of youth. The guy's ageless. And second of all, what a great surprise Chris Olave has been. Really, really coming into his own.
Let me start off with Chris Olave. The kid has shown that he can be a stud in the wide receiver room. My personal pick to be the offensive rookie of the year this year. He's leading rookies in catches, yards. He's doing it all. He's kind of he's gelled with Andy Dalton really well. Would like to see some more continuity there. Demario Davis, the Mississippi product, has shown over the last few years since he's joined New Orleans that he is one of the top linebackers in the NFL. He's still doing it at this age, and it's just great to see.
Absolutely. Demario Davis and his wife done a lot of work in New Orleans, too, to give back to the community. Always great to see that. We'll end things off with the greatest quarterback of all time. But this year, things have been going a little bit differently. What's going on in Tampa Bay? You got weapons. You got Mike Evans. You got Chris Godwin. You got Leonard Fournette, who's an outstanding running back in the red zone. You've got Tom Brady, a quarterback. You've got a team not too different than the team that's been to the Super Bowl. What's going on with this offense?
I think it's all Todd Bowles. I feel like Todd Bowles is a very defensive-minded quarterback, and he belongs to defensive coordinator. I mean, the defense when they won the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, the defense was outstanding. You just can't win in the league with a defensive-minded head coach, and the play calling has just not been great.
Yeah, I think you're definitely seeing the same thing in New Orleans. They lose Sean Payton. Tampa Bay loses Bruce Arians. They both go to their defensive coordinators to take over the helm, and both teams just have not translated very well.
Yeah, and last thing here, Chris Godwin in years past has been an absolute weapon, a guy that's going to get a high target share per game. But guys, just talk a little bit about the play calling, as you mentioned. You know, Chris Godwin's getting these targets. He's getting 10-plus targets a game. They're hitting him on 2- and 3-yard completions versus using him as the good route runner that he is, and he's got great hands. The guy's got the ability to make big plays in the medium and long passing game. They just refuse to use him in that way.
I feel like the injury to Jensen on the offensive line, I mean, I feel like Brady and him worked so well together, and to lose him, I mean, that's a veteran guy who knows all the plays and knows what to do on each play, and I feel like linemen are a huge key to an offensive success, and I feel like with him being down, that's what's hurt the Bucs a decent amount.
Yep, and that is all we've got for tonight. Joseph Rogers, Jason Kern, I'm Carson Ware. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Go Rebels tomorrow. Go Razorbacks tomorrow morning. We'll see you next time.
Toddy.